Welcome back, everyone, to the VIBE EDU podcast, as we've got the roundtable of wonderful educators and leaders, Kim Gameroz, TJ Vari, Mitch Weathers, who's not 100%, as you'll probably see his makeshift finger, and myself, Joshua Stamper, as we're on episode 2 of Social Emotional Learning, which is technically episode 18 for the entire series. But we're so glad that you're here with us, and I know Halloween is behind us, and we are not sugared up, but we're ready to talk about social emotional learning. Mitch, you found an article. I think that's going to be probably where we're our starting point, with a beautiful headline that's going to probably get Kim out of her seat, fired up.
Yeah,
Let's
so
hear it.
this is a research study, and they followed 2,425 children ages 8 through 9 in 62 different primary schools, elementary schools. And the headline, if you will, is that school-based social emotional learning intervention found zero impact on children's mental health. So I was like, whoa, okay. And I had a feeling where this might go. The way it's summarized, I won't read any more than this last little bit about, in practice, schools should be wary of buying off-the-shelf universal SEL packages expecting measurable mental health gains. Effort may be better spent strengthening your existing provision, targeting support, and improving classroom relationships and routines school-wide.
Okay.
I thought that was very on point, and I bet Kim has something to say about it.
But I adore you because you just read like literally the headline, and I was like, nope, stop. We need to record this. And then you had said, but you don't even know what I'm going to say or my thoughts about it. I was like, I don't care. We're going to record it. Because I had a feeling that that's kind of what was going to be the ending, was like, we have used boxed curriculum and there is no effect, no positive effect because of it. And I would say, duh, of course.
I mean, how can you have a boxed curriculum for SEL? Just like
it exists.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's the same thing with. I get contacted somewhat routinely from districts or schools looking for a canned curriculum on executive functioning, and I'm like, it doesn't. I mean, it exists, but you're not going to buy it from me because it's not going to work. You know,
right?
But SEL, at its soul, at its foundation, has to be about relationships. Mm-hmm. Am I right about that, Kim? You're the expert here.
And I think it comes from you, within you, the adult, and teaching into the lagging skills of kids. What I was going to say, I've been thinking about it a lot, because I was like, how can I give people like a prime example of when like literally the shit could hit the fan and you need social emotional learning to like keep everybody grounded. And so my example that I was thinking of, and I love this, you can think, I mean, the example you gave in that study was 8 to 9 year olds, right? So let's talk about 6 and 7 year olds. It's the same but different. And a first grade standard, you guys, for science is using what you know, little 6, 7 year olds, about the adaptations of animals and plants, create something that can be used to solve a world problem. Now, if you are a first grade teacher, you're like, what in the world does that even mean? I thought I was just teaching like animal adaptations. We're going to create a cute little animal or something like that and like call it a day. But with your next generation science standards, they of course want you to do more. So as being the extra teacher that I am and will always be, I took it upon myself to go, cool. What we're going to do is we're going to study animal adaptations, meaning an easy way to do this is like just your birds and bird beaks, especially. So pelican beaks are different than hummingbird beaks, right? And we studied like 4 different types of beaks. And we're talking like, oh, they can scoop and they can scoop up the fish because why? They, are near the water, and that's where the fish are, and that's how they eat. And hummingbirds, it needs to be super tiny because it has to go inside the flowers, like all of that stuff, right? So we study animal adaptations. And then that next part of the standard is using what you know about all that, create something that's going to solve a world problem. So what we did was we zoomed in on a world problem, and for a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old whose elementary school backs up to a big field with tons and tons of apartments and houses all around, people go on walks by the school and they bring their dogs. And guess what? A lot of them do not pick up the dog poop, and there is poop everywhere. And so if poop is the problem, what are we going to do? What are we going to build that's going to mimic those animal adaptations, like the scooper, right? Or the little plucker, or the little like hummingbird that goes in? What are we going to do to like pick up to get the poop off the ground? And that's what we used to do. So I would bring in, talk about STEAM, right? I would bring in little chopsticks. I'd bring spoons. They could bring in items from home in the kitchen, all this stuff, and we'd create something. Now think about the excitement that's going on in these kids, right? And also some kids are like, this is boring. This blows. I want nothing to do with this. You've got a mixed bag of emotions in there because we're emotional beings, right? Finally, we've created all of these things. And now I go out there outside and I have Play-Doh. Play-Doh is the poop. And it's like hot pink, blue, green, yellow. And I roll up all of the little pieces of the like fake poop and I throw them all out on the field. Okay. And now in their groups, they've created their little things and they're going to go outside and they're going to pick up the fake poop as fast as they can and get as much as they want. Now, can you imagine like the chaos that could be this, right? With little people. But again, being the extra teacher that I am, why not throw in technology? Why not? Of course, we have to film this also. So I used to teach them, you can't just like film anything. You need to get specific shots. I need you to get a close-up shot. I need you to get over the shoulder. I need a bird's eye view shot. I need an establishing shot. I need a long shot. And I taught into all of these skills. And they had this list of all the different shots they had in their group. They all had their roles. Now think about all of this stuff that I want little people to do. Okay. It's a lot in their brains. It's a lot of emotional toll on them also. And you as the teacher, if you did not use social emotional learning to front load any of this, it would be complete chaos out there. So what you say is you paint the picture. We talked about being a future thinker before. You guys, the poop is going to be everywhere. All the Play-Doh poop is going to be everywhere. And you're going to feel really excited to get it. I know, because it's a contest. What are you going to do? And you just tell them, what are you going to do when you see somebody else running straight towards the exact same poop? What are you going to do? Are you going to crash into them? Are you going to roll them over? Are you going to jump on top of them? Are you going to scream at them? How are we going to solve these problems? Solve the problems before they actually happen. And you also need to front load with, what are you going to do when you don't get it? What are you going to do when you're super excited and you trip and you fall on your shoelaces that are undone? What are you going to do? How are you going to solve all those problems? Because it's all going to happen. And guess what? You also have iPads in your hands. Now think about that. If you're running with an iPad and you fall over, you're going to tell your mom and your dad that they owe tons and tons and tons of money because now it's broken. What are you going to do to keep it safe? All of these things, you guys, it's all social emotional learning. That social situation that's about to happen could be complete chaos if you do not front load with all of this. Then you tell them what's expected. You tell them that they need to be flexible. You tell them they're going to use the tools in their toolbox. You're going to front load with all of the things that you've been teaching into, and then you let them go. Now, I'm telling you, this was probably a highlight of my first grade year every single year because it was fun and it was chaos, but it was the good type because afterwards I could bring them down and say, okay, hold on. Let's reflect for just a second. Okay. They counted their poop. They did all the things. You guys, hold on. How are you feeling right now? You're a little excited. I totally get it. What are you going to do to support yourself? Because we're going to do it again. Do you need to take a deep breath? Do you need to sit and talk to a friend? Do you need to slowly count your Play-Doh? Do you need to squeeze the Play-Doh? What do you need to do? Because we're going to do it again and it's got to be calm. And you talk to kids like that. That is you guys all working together. That doesn't come from a box curriculum. There's no lesson in that. That isn't like a video that they play and you have to like, talk about, turn and talk with a partner or something. That's real life. And that comes from the teacher modeling, So I think I don't know. I would just love to hear your thoughts on that. I was just going back to that movie in my mind, replaying all of this and going, wow, that takes a lot. You're asking a lot of a 6 and a 7-year-old to be able to do that without it going full on bonkers and crazy, you know? I don't know. What are your
Well, the
thoughts?
standard alone is crazy.
Oh, I know.
But what you were talking about is actually, I'm going to read a comment on Spotify, and this is what TG said in the last episode. And I'll shout out the username. I don't know who this is, but Surfer Girl Nick.
Nikki.
I guess maybe Nikki.
Yep.
It says, so much good stuff in here. Love where TJ says weave in SEL back in instead of plop it on top. And that's kind of what you're talking about, Kim, is weaving that in. TJ, maybe that's something that you were going to, it looked like you were about to say something. So maybe that's kind of what you were going at.
I know where he's going.
What?
Josh always knows when I'm about to say something.
You can lean in.
Yeah. No, I actually think, I don't know where that article came from, but I get the heebie-jeebies from articles like that because for a couple of reasons. One, I think it contradicts itself in that it has this headline, this fanatical headline about SEL not working. And then people are like, oh, SEL doesn't work. So that's not a good strategy for schools, is to make, outrageous headlines like that, because people don't read the whole article. But then when you read the article, if you pick up on it, they kind of say, but we should have routines and we should have SEL. And right. So we've been saying, in a broader definition of SEL, it's everything Kim just described as a teacher and teacher moves, executive functioning, and other skills that students need to learn in the classroom to be positive learners. And I do want some curriculum. I do. I mean, I don't have to, we don't all have to agree on this, right? But I do want some curriculum, and I'll say why. But I also don't know that the objective of SEL is to solve students' mental health issues. So like that part bothers me too. Is like, I'm not implementing SEL because I want my teachers to become psychologists and psychiatrists. And I'm not implementing SEL because I want to solve like deep-rooted mental health issues that kids come to school with. I don't think that's the purpose of school or SEL. And that's not the reason why I'm doing it. I'm doing it so that students can have a sense of belonging. We've talked about this before, and that they connect to the learning, and they connect to school, and they connect to their teachers, and they connect to their peers in a way that's productive, makes school more effective, makes the learning more impactful, and it makes kids have a sense of themselves and identity. The curriculum piece, and then I'll pause, because if we haven't argued on the show. Josh did one time get
I got a little heated once.
Yeah. But the part about the curriculum for me is not every teacher is innately as good as what Kim just described. And so I have an army of people. When I was in my last role, we had 2,000 employees. So I need something to roll out to give people who don't have the skills or the training to be able to use.
Yes.
And if I want lessons on things like body image and positive habits, and I want kids to reflect and go through things, I want something for my teachers to have, because I don't think every teacher is going to teach a great lesson on body image. No offense to teachers. I love teachers, but I can hear teachers saying, I don't want to teach a lesson on body image. And maybe, that's more of in a counseling scenario or something like that. But I think that there's a deeper place too for social and emotional learning. And I want resources for it. The canned part I get, though. Nothing. You can't buy organized binder from Mitch Weathers and implement it to the best degree without professional learning and support and an understanding of why we're using this and how we're using it. So I would say, if that canned curriculum didn't work to solve mental health issues, it probably wasn't meant to solve mental health issues, number one. And number two, nothing works unless you have buy-in from the teachers and people who have expectations, at least expectations, for the fidelity of its use. And now we're going back to our 4-part series on professional learning. So I'll.
I so badly just want to put a pumpkin on you. I don't know why.
Because it's Halloween.
Okay, I have to say something. So you said you want curriculum. I think what you really need, I know what schools really need and districts really need, is at least a framework or a roadmap. And this happened, you guys, last week. I was with a coaching group with a school district, and this one teacher, love her, she goes, we don't even know what our tier 1 foundational supports are for social emotional learning and behavior. And I was like, okay, so here, this is your framework, because I know the systems that are living and breathing across some of your schools, because I've coached some of those teachers at those schools. So I know what they're doing. You need a common language and you need common systems. And if we lay out the way I do with my groups that I coach with, it's 10 systems, 1 system every single month, and you need 10 phrases or 10, I would say, overarching concepts that you also need to plug in there, 1 concept per month. So like the first one is thoughts and feelings. Hey, we all have thoughts and we all have feelings. You know that kid that blurts all the time? Okay. He's got thoughts and he's also got a lot of feelings. But guess what? So do I as a teacher. When you're blurting, I feel a certain way about it and I've got thoughts about it. And so does everybody else. That's social. That's social emotional. And what do you do about it? Because you can't punish the bad behavior or the blurting out of a kid. So how do you solve those problems? And that's the stuff that we coach teachers on, because the teachers need to know how to do that. And that's just 1 month. That's like your August concept, is just thoughts and feelings, which, remember the last episode I said, where do you start? You start with how do we want to feel in school and what do we need to do in order to feel that way? But then you also need some sort of system. And we always start with, and I know Josh, you preach about this too, like greeting kids at the door.
Yeah.
Greeting kids at the door. Can you do that as a teacher? And that's where you start with all of this. And then it grows and grows, because you need a framework. You do. You need a roadmap. And not all teachers are the same, but man, it's an awesome thing when you go around a campus and you hear teachers talking to kids in the same way and talking through social situations and tricky behaviors and things in the same way. That's when social emotional learning is successful.
Yeah, and my only point is, if I'm rolling that out and in August is thoughts and feelings, love that. I would also like to give the teachers maybe a guide, some question prompts that they can use, like some universal things. Maybe if in the elementary there's a cartoon that they can play and the cartoon characters have thoughts and feelings, right? Or there's an argument about somebody's thoughts and then there's a question prompt that said, well, what should we do about this, right? I want the teachers to have that, a flip book, whatever it is, so that they have like the structure behind what you're saying versus it just being thoughts and feelings month. And then somebody's just not doing a good enough job. Because I actually think one thing why the social and emotional movement like went sour in some places is people doing it poorly.
Right.
Like that's the other thing about that article. How do you know those people did a good job with what they were given?
Well, and teachers want to do their very best. They want to perform excellent. Like that's ingrained in the world of education. And so when you don't have a guideline, when you don't have that expectation, you don't have something like a curriculum, they get insecure about it. There's a lot of negative emotions that are attached to that, because they're like, what is the guideline? What is the baseline? What is the expectation that is supposed to occur in the classroom? And if I don't have that, then that's when I think teachers lose trust in the initiative. They start having negative feelings towards social emotional learning. And to Kim's point too, like obviously you need more than just the curriculum for it to be successful as far as the initiative and for it to be part of the culture. But that's why like I built the relationship inventory. That's what Kim, you were talking about before with like greeting kids at the door. Yeah, we all know that, but it also is nice to see that on a checklist that you can go through every day, just as a reminder of best practices and things that are the most important thing to build a healthy relationship with a kid. And for us as leaders to assume that our entire staff, like what TJ was saying, 2,000 employees know how to do that. That's not true. Like the teacher prep program or someone coming into a new district, they probably don't have those skills. And so it's something, going back to the professional development topic, is that's something that needs to occur, as far as this is what happens on our campus. This is what happens in our district. And here are maybe the curriculum, but then also the professional development that correlates with that, to make sure that everybody has the same expectation, the same common language to what Kim was talking about. So that way everybody's on the same page. And then there's not those negative feelings and that doubt and insecurity when it's time to go and implement that in the classroom.
I think that's the missing piece that you just highlighted, Josh, is that whether it's a curriculum or, like you're saying, TJ, just resources, so teachers aren't overwhelmed. But Kim, what you and your team do is professional learning ongoing, not just one time, right? We know that doesn't work either.
Yep.
Because it's also not fair to think of the school leader or district leader rolling out the initiative as the keeper of all wisdom when it comes to SEL or whatever programming. So I think to lean into the professional learning and ongoing support with the initiative, whatever it is kind of the missing thing, whether it's a curriculum that they purchased. But I mean, because what I hear us saying is, you go and buy a boxed anything and hand it to a teacher and expect it to go well. In some places it will, and in other places, to your point, TJ, I don't want to do this.
No.
For whatever. It could be completely valid, So I think that professional learning piece is kind of the key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, think about that, the boxed part of that. I mean, you're going to get, I think, one of three or more scenarios. The one is the teacher who's going to unbox it and do an awesome job.
Mm-hmm.
And we have lots of teachers like that. We have another teacher who's going to unbox it and they're going to botch it. They're going to do their best, but it's not going to turn out good because they weren't trained. It's not their fault. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have somebody who looks at the box and says, I'm not opening that. Nobody trained me on that.
There's actually a fourth. There's the person who opens it and goes, I'm going to alter this.
Yeah.
And make it my own or make it better. And oftentimes, and I'm just speaking from my own personal experience with that, because we're saying something different now when you say, I got this, we're just saying box. So it's not this boxed curriculum or staged or scripted curriculum or something like that. But absolutely, you having something that you can equip teachers with is helpful. It's just figuring out what that is and then how to, let's all keep going in the right direction, right?
With kids and your new group of kids every single year or every period or whatever, every period every year. I mean, think about all the groupings of kids that you get to be with and the different dynamics that occur within that group every single time. I mean, I heard recently, and again, this is like literally stuck in my brain, Danny Bauer, I've been just divulging everything that he's putting out. And he said that no social situation, you don't go into a social situation and feel this neutral. There's nothing neutral about social situations. You are an emotional being. You bring in your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions as an adult. And so do all of the kids. And also, I know I've said this phrase before, but the lagging social and emotional skills in kids, that's your behaviors that you see. They're truly just unsolved problems and lagging skills. And how do you teach into that? What is lagging within a kid? It's not, and honestly, this stuff is the stuff that irks me when people say, well, that kid is just attention seeking. Kim, this kid is just attention seeking. That's what this behavior is. I'm like, well, why does the kid need some attention? What is it? What's tricky for that kid that makes them then go and search out attention from whatever? What is it? It's something else that's triggering, because that is truly just a signal to an unsolved problem. And that is, again, there's a lot of unlearning that happens when we're coaching teachers, because I think a lot of teachers just see behavior, and I see it as totally different. I see it as lagging social and emotional skills, and what can you teach into so that this kid does act in expected ways, right? That's really what you're seeing there. And I do love the quote from Ross Green when he says, if a kid could, they would, because kids do well if they can. And I mean, if you are a teacher listening to that right now, you need to write that down on a Post-it and put it on near your computer, by your desk, because truly that is the unlearning I think that a lot of educators, a lot of adults need to do right now, because we see it as like, this kid is out to get me, they're out to get somebody else, when really it's like, no, that behavior that you're seeing is a signal, and we really need to teach into the skills that are lagging or lacking within them.
Can I say something about attention-seeking behavior? As a kid who got in quite a bit of trouble in school, I think attention-seeking behavior, that I think this about a lot of behaviors. The behavior itself appears to be attention-seeking, and I think it's actually the opposite.
Mm.
This kid's probably getting attention about something that they don't want any attention about. I didn't do my homework. I didn't prepare for school. I'm not doing well here. I didn't get to my seat on time. What did you call it? Still hands. My hands aren't still enough or whatever. Calm hands. And so still, I don't know what the language is, but whatever you're supposed to be, that kid is not being that at that time. So the teacher's calling the kid out from across the room, and then they do something weird and wacky. And then we go, well, that's attention-seeking behavior. Like, no. Like, when I did stuff like that in school, it's because I don't want you to bother me. So now you bothered me, and guess what's going to happen?
You kick the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
I know a fourth grade teacher that I just met with recently, she was saying that exact same thing. She's like, I don't think this kid, like the counselor had said, oh, it's just attention seeking. And she looked at me and she's like, Kim, I know how you feel about like that label. Like, I cannot stand it when people say stuff like that. It irks me. It gets me, like, I'm already feeling heated. I can tell. But she was like, that is exactly, I know this kid doesn't want attention at all. Literally. And it's the stuff, it's that proactive stuff. It's what can I do to support this kid so that they can do whatever, because then this behavior will go away. That's really, really hard for teachers to do. It really is, because they want to punish. They want the consequence, because what they see is that attention seeking stuff happening and it bothers them. Again, this is social emotional learning in real life, right? That doesn't come from a boxed curriculum. Like, if you have a kid that like, no, it doesn't work like that, which is why I love what I do, because we coach teachers in real life with the kids that are in their classrooms, the dynamic that is going on. And also, not every teacher is the same. They come with a lot of baggage. They come with a lot of unlearning too. And so, I mean, again, that's why when you invest in teaching inside out, we say, we're going to support your teachers so that they can support the kids. We don't go, we're going to give this box curriculum that's going to fix all your behaviors. Like, that's not how it works.
I also would, because I think those behaviors are typically the opposite of what the kid's thinking. But I also would just invite people to ask this question about kids and behavior. What was happening 5, 10, and 15 minutes before that occurred? And that's probably more for elementary. And then middle, it's like, what was happening 5, 10, 15, 30, an hour before?
Yeah.
And then even for high school, I would go as far as like yesterday.
Yeah, I love that.
And so I want to find out
I'd say yesterday for middle school too, because like, especially with like social media, a lot of the stuff that happens online pours over onto the campus the next day. You know, it's hard for them to let that go.
Yeah. In classroom practice, though, even the 5-minute rule is important. Like, what was going on 5 minutes before he threw the chair down? Like, we're just right 5 minutes before. And the teacher might say, oh, well, we were moving from the chairs to the carpet. And it's like, well, maybe he doesn't have the skills to do that. Somebody bumped into him and he threw the chair to the ground. Like, let's figure that out. Let's figure the 5-minute part out so it doesn't keep happening.
Yeah. That's something that I love teaching teachers to like drill down to the tricky part. And that chair throwing, we found out just like with another kid, it was because the kid had to rip out their math workbook page, and ripping out the math workbook page was tricky for this kid. And every single day, the 5-minute mark, right? What happened before the chair? 5 minutes before, it was I had to rip out my math workbook page. And that kid did not have the skills, right, to say, hey, teacher, this is really tricky for me. It would really support me if you help me take out my math workbook page. No, you as the adult, you've got to do that. You have to have the conversation with the kid to figure out what the tricky part is and then come up with a solution together. And that solution could be, what if I ripped out the workbook page? And guess what? Now we're not throwing chairs. But so often I get called in and people go, well, Kim, we need tips and tricks because the kids are throwing chairs. I'm like, I'm not giving you tips and tricks for like when we're throwing chairs. I'm going to give you tips and tricks for how the 5 minutes before, you know?
It could be like, here's how you get it all the way across the classroom. You gotta get a little arm behind it.
If you want to hit 3 people in a row, this is how you got to really whip it.
But you know what? You know what's funny about that? I don't want to tell teachers to do this because it could go bad. But a lot of kids, if you say, man, you could have thrown that chair harder than that. Like that was not even that good of a chair throw. Like, I'm not impressed by that.
Yeah.
A lot of kids they'll go, what? Like, look, if you're going to do it and you're going to get in trouble, let's go all in on the chair. And I think that I use.
Yeah, you may not want to promote that. I mean, I get where you're going with it.
But Josh and I have talked about this before. Some of that works with certain kids who they're doing something, but it's like, I don't know.
I've done something similar to that, TJ, with kids. But again, it's an older, more mature mind than an elementary kid because they may think you're being literal.
But you can't.
Versus just being a smart aleck and kind of getting them out of that state of mind too. I've done that using humor to kind of jolt them out of, the mindset or maybe that triggered emotion that is currently holding them back from having like a real conversation too.
That'll only work if you know the kid. That's predicated on relationship.
100%.
You can't just like pull that out and be like, oh, that didn't work. That's not what because you have to know the kid. But I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on, approaching this, because the one-off, like you're saying, what's the sticky part? What was 5 minutes before? What was 24 hours before? Of course, but creating learning environments that are anticipating that reality, because it is the only reality. We don't know the trauma or the stuff kids are carrying at any age when they show up to school or they show up to your class, which is, Josh, you've said it a few times, like standing at the door. Yeah, we all know that, but why are we doing it? And how are we creating spaces that anticipate the tricky parts?
Well, that's why I was pushing my staff constantly, and I still do this today. And when I do keynotes and whatnot, is like, I'm trying to give you proactive strategies. And I know a lot of teachers look at it and they're like, oh, it's just one more thing to do or whatever. But it's like, you're going to be spending your time with these kids one way or another. So do you want it on the back end where they've already done something crazy? Or do you want to do it in the front end where you actually get some type of information that's going to allow you to dictate like, oh, you know what? They're having a tough day. I'm going to communicate different with them. I'm going to have different expectations to them. I'm going to, be at their level. There's like so many things that you'll probably do without even thinking about it because you have that information to say, okay, I know this kid's already had a tough day. The parents were fighting all last night and barely got any sleep. I got that because I did a check-in in the morning. So I know where this kid's at before I even started the lesson, right? Or, this kid came in and I'm doing some, fun memes to kind of get to an idea. And you know what? They just broke up with their girlfriend in the hallway right before class. Well, if I didn't do any of these proactive strategies, I wouldn't know where the kid's coming in. And instead of fussing at them going, oh, why do you got your head down? Or why didn't you do your homework? Well, I'm probably going to have a different approach to the situation because I have something that I've done proactively to have a better relationship with this kid and get underneath what's the behavior. And I think that's like the biggest pitch is like, standing at the door saying, hello and greeting them by their name may sound very elementary or very minimal, but there's a ton of data to support saying you're going to get 40% more engagement by just doing that small little thing. And I know your email is important, and I know, talking to a peer, it might be good for your mental health. But if you want the best results, these best practices and this list of things that we have for you is really, really important, because the relationship with the kid and getting to the bottom of what's going on in their world is going to help you in the long run. Again, instead of spending so much time on the back end of trying to fix a behavior that may not have even happened if you had this information.
But even if you don't, and first of all, I think what's worth stating to every teacher listening, if in your classroom, kids are throwing chairs, and I use that as a kind of a euphemism for any behavior, it's hard.
Yep.
It's
for
hard.
Sure.
Like, and sometimes, well, there's just going to be times where things happen. But if the culture of the school and the commitment on each individual, like collectively, is to get curious about the behavior instead of punitive, and there might be punishment, right? Even with TJ's strategy, where it's like, yeah, if you're going to throw the chair, bro, like throw the chair. Yeah, you're still going to get in trouble because you threw the chair. I'm not saying that.
Exactly.
It's like, no, there's no punishment or anything. But I think that word curiosity is, and it's, again, talk about hard. That's not easy to take self out of the equation when a kid's acting that way in the space that you're tasked with overseeing. But if you can at least try and commit to that, then we get curious. And if it is in like a middle school or high school and they're going from place to place to place, having those lines of communication so that information can be shared, because maybe one teacher did learn something about a kid. Well, now that was in second period, and they show up to my seventh and they're just done. They survived the school day, but they're out and they're behaving in a way. So how do you do all of that? That's not easy.
And what I'm saying too is, like, in that equation, I want to somehow disrupt what the kid is typically expecting as a response from us, right? Because all of a sudden they maybe they didn't throw the chair, but they knocked the chair down, and now there's not an adult in their face yelling at them saying, "Why did you do that?" Versus what are some of the other curious statements we can say to say, that looked weird. Like you pushed the chair to the ground. Like, what did you mean by that? Like, just that kind of demeanor, it puts a kid to think, oh, these people aren't out to just get me.
Yeah, we want kids to think that you're always on their team.
Yeah.
And that we've all had this experience with a kid, and
For
you say something or do something and they kind of look at you like, really? Like,
because the mindset is me versus you versus us being on the same team.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you guys, I think I brought it up, like when kids, you could tell that kid just wanted to fall asleep. Did I talk about that? I had a policy in my class. It wasn't stated, but there would be kids. You've all done this, right? Where you remember sitting in, let's just say, high school. And I used to do it when I was a student in high school. I had this thing where I would get so tired and I would visualize a cot next to my desk in the row. And I remember just thinking, if I could lay down on that cot, I would fall asleep in like 3 seconds. It's one of those days, like as a teenager. So
I didn't visualize. I just fell asleep.
Me too. I just went right to
I never did. I was like this, listening, taking notes the whole time.
I remember having kids in as a high school teacher, and you could see them. They were the Kims, but they really were tired, and they're just barely hanging on, And I'd walk over quietly and I would just whisper to them, I'm like, just put your head down and go to sleep. And I remember these kids looking up at me like in bewilderment, like, what? Like they thought they were going to get in trouble. Like I'm going, hey, wake up, pay attention. This, and I'd be like, they're like, what, Mr. Weathers? And I'd be like, well, hey, you're not learning anything anyway.
Right.
You're too tired. Take a nap. We'll get it tomorrow. Stop by at lunch. I'll catch you up. We'll figure something out.
You can take your ruler and just slap it next to their head.
Like my physics teacher in high school. But I mean, that actually worked. He had this big, large, like lead.
That's how
ball.
Mitch broke his finger, actually.
Yeah. I was practicing with. He would start class, and then periodically throughout class, if kids were getting tired, he would take this on the, those black lab tables in a science room. I was always shocked that it didn't break. That's how heavy this ball was. And he would just start dropping it repeatedly on there, and it woke everybody up. So
we're not advocating for that either.
Not
Think
advocating
about
for that
the
either.
chair nor the.
he had a ruler too, Mr. Hodges. I just think that kids, if there's some way for us to know that you're on their team, and that takes pulling yourself out of the equation at times.
I think it's the empathy piece. It's the empathy piece. And when you are drilling down to what that tricky part is, that next step that we tell teachers is you got to empathize with them. You got to tell them, like, you totally get it. Like you said, I get it. Like, I'm tired too. Right? Like, if I were you, I'd be tired. I know. It's hard to be you. It's hard to be me. I get it. It's that empathy piece that I think is missing, because we go right to just trying to solve the problem or trying to solve the problem for a kid. But when you can, like, get down to what's tricky, you can empathize with them. And then when you can come up with a solution together, that's when true magic starts to happen. And again, those skills, that's hard for adults. And I get that too. But that's why we're here, you know?
Right. And what we're talking about isn't just for students, and this is just relationships with other human beings.
That's it. All
right, Josh, you got to wrap us up.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap us up. My daughter just came home from college, so if you hear hoopla in the background, it's because they're excited. Yeah, right. Got to come home for the weekend. So all that being said, I put up here, jump into the comments. What do you think? Because I love seeing everything in YouTube and on Spotify, as people are putting in comments all the time for our episodes. If you have any questions for future mailbag episodes that we're going to be doing in between the different series, make sure you throw them in there. We do read all the comments. So thank you for everyone that continuously puts in there as far as, words of encouragement, aha moments, questions, all that kind of stuff. Keep doing that. Of course, if you need anything, our 4 websites are going to be in the show notes for you. So if something has popped up, if you need support, if you need PD for your campus or your district, we do all of that. Definitely check out our websites and all the different things that we have for you, both free and for services. With that, we're going to continue this conversation of social emotional learning next week. That'll be episode 3. And when every series, every topic, we do 4 episodes, just as a reminder, or maybe this is the first time you're tuning in. If you love the content, if you love this podcast, please share it out with your community, with your friends, with your family, with colleagues. We love how this show is continuously growing. And I don't know if you guys saw, but we just continuously find people outside of the United States. And we have 4 new countries that just tuned in, including Japan, of all countries, tuning in for the VIBE EDU. So keep that up. We love it. And we will see you again next week.